Imagine every locked gateway existed for one terrifying reason. Humanity returned screaming. 15 sacred locations welcomed explorers exactly once, then silence swallowed every path. Maps still blush around their names. Evidence whispers impossible patterns. Curiosity demands another step. Wisdom quietly refuses forever because something watched first arrivals leave changed completely. At the foot of Mount Li in central China, an immense earthen mound rises with quiet confidence above the surrounding landscape. From a distance, it appears almost ordinary, softened by grass and the passing of centuries. Yet, beneath this hill, according to ancient records, rests one of the most ambitious burial complexes ever conceived. It is the final resting place of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor who united China in 221 BC. His mausoleum has fascinated historians, engineers, and explorers for generations, not because it has been fully revealed, but because it has not. The silence surrounding the central burial chamber is remarkable. While thousands of life-sized terracotta warriors have emerged from nearby excavation pits, standing in disciplined ranks as though awaiting commands that never came, the emperor's own tomb remains sealed. It has never been opened. Modern technology has scanned the surrounding landscape, mapped hidden structures, and confirmed that an enormous complex lies beneath the earth. Yet the chamber itself continues to resist direct exploration. Ancient historian Sima Qian offered an extraordinary description of what might lie inside. Writing roughly a century after the emperor's death, he described craftsmen constructing a vast underground palace. Rivers and seas, he claimed, were represented with flowing mercury. The ceiling displayed the heavens, while the ground mirrored the empire below. Mechanical devices, including crossbows prepared to fire automatically, were reportedly installed to discourage intruders. Were these simply literary embellishments designed to magnify imperial glory? Or did they preserve genuine details remembered by those closest to the project? Modern science has added another layer to the puzzle. Soil studies conducted around the burial mound have detected unusually high concentrations of mercury. Researchers have suggested that these findings may support at least part of Sima Qian's remarkable account. If extensive pools of mercury still exist beneath the mound, they could pose serious environmental and safety challenges for any excavation. Preserving fragile artifacts would present another enormous obstacle. Once exposed to air, ancient pigments, wood, textiles, and other organic materials can deteriorate with alarming speed. The decision not to open the chamber may therefore reflect patience rather than hesitation. Still, unanswered questions naturally invite broader speculation. Could the chamber remain astonishingly intact after more than 2,000 years? Some researchers believe the carefully engineered mound and surrounding structures created a remarkably stable environment. Others wonder whether hidden corridors, collapsed passages, or unknown defensive mechanisms continued to protect the emperor's resting place exactly as intended. If so, what would modern archaeologists encounter first? Magnificent preservation or unexpected destruction caused by time itself? Beyond these practical mysteries lie theories that stretch further into imagination. Some suggest the tomb contains technologies or engineering techniques not fully appreciated today. Others propose that undiscovered texts, maps, or ceremonial objects could dramatically reshape understanding of early imperial China. A few fringe interpretations go even further, imagining knowledge deliberately concealed from later generations, or symbolic designs encoding philosophical ideas yet to be recognized. None of these proposals has been confirmed, yet they persist because the central chamber remains inaccessible. An unopened space naturally becomes a canvas upon which possibilities are projected. There is also the question of intention. Why has one of history's greatest archaeological prizes remained untouched despite advances in excavation methods? Preservation is certainly a major reason, but it is not the only consideration. Some scholars argue that future technologies may allow investigators to examine every corner of the tomb without disturbing a single artifact. Others believe opening the chamber prematurely could erase information that later generations would have been better equipped to preserve. In this sense, restraint becomes part of the investigation itself. The emperor devoted immense resources to preparing for eternity. His armies of clay soldiers, bronze weapons, acrobats, officials, musicians, and horses suggest a vision of the afterlife that mirrored the world above. Yet, the figure they were created to serve remains hidden behind walls no modern eyes have crossed. Every new survey reveals another fragment of the surrounding complex, while the heart of the mausoleum remains silent. Perhaps that silence is the monument's greatest mystery. Is the burial chamber exactly as ancient writers described, preserved beneath layers of earth and time? Or does it contain surprises that no surviving record has ever imagined? Until its doors are finally crossed, or until new ways of seeing make entry unnecessary, the deepest secrets of Qin Shi Huang's tomb remain suspended between evidence, memory, and enduring wonder. If the unopened tomb of Qin Shi Huang reminds us that some mysteries endure because humanity chooses patience, the next story reveals a different kind of mystery, one that emerged the moment a sealed doorway was finally crossed. In Egypt's Valley of the Kings, silence did not remain undisturbed. Instead, it began telling a story that continues to evolve more than a century after its discovery. The barren limestone cliffs rise beneath an unforgiving sun, their pale surfaces concealing chambers carved deep into the ancient bedrock. At first glance, the valley feels almost empty, stripped of life except for scattered stones and drifting desert winds. Yet, beneath this seemingly lifeless landscape rests a vast necropolis where generations of pharaohs prepared for eternity. Among its hidden passages lies the modest entrance to one of history's most famous discoveries, the tomb of Tutankhamun. Unlike the grand pyramids visible from miles away, Tutankhamun's burial place reveals itself only after descending a narrow staircase cut into the earth. Its entrance is surprisingly humble, almost easy to overlook. That quiet appearance makes what waited beyond all the more remarkable. In November 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter uncovered the sealed doorway after years of determined searching. When a small opening was finally made, Carter was famously asked whether he could see anything inside. His reply has echoed through history: yes, wonderful things. Beyond the entrance stood rooms crowded with gilded furniture, ceremonial chariots, jeweled ornaments, statues, weapons, and countless objects arranged as though their owner had only recently departed. For the first time, the modern world encountered an ancient royal tomb that had survived largely intact. Yet, even amid such extraordinary preservation, questions quickly emerged. Tutankhamun himself remains an enigmatic figure. He became pharaoh while still a child and ruled for only a brief period before dying around the age of 19. His reign was relatively short, leaving behind fewer monuments than many other Egyptian rulers. Why, then, has his tomb become the most famous in the world? Was it simply extraordinary luck that protected it from ancient robbers while so many greater kings lost their treasures? Or does its survival hint at circumstances still not fully understood? Scientific examination has gradually reshaped what is known about the young king. CT scans and genetic studies suggest he may have suffered from several health conditions, including problems affecting his bones and mobility. Some evidence indicates he fractured his leg shortly before death, while traces of disease have led researchers to consider malaria among the possible contributing factors. Earlier theories proposing assassination through a blow to the head have largely fallen from favor, yet certainty remains elusive. The final days of Tutankhamun's life continue to resist complete reconstruction. Then there is the mystery that captured the public imagination almost immediately, the so-called Curse of the Pharaoh. After the tomb's discovery, several individuals connected with the excavation died within the following years, including Lord Carnarvon, Carter's financial supporter, whose death from an infected mosquito bite became international news. Newspapers eagerly linked these events to warnings said to protect the ancient burial. Stories multiplied with remarkable speed. Electrical failures, mysterious illnesses, unexplained accidents, and unexpected deaths became woven into a narrative suggesting that disturbing the king's eternal rest carried terrible consequences. Modern historians generally point to coincidence, sensational reporting, and selective memory as explanations for the legend. Many members of Carter's team lived long lives without unusual misfortune, including Carter himself, who survived for more than 15 years after entering the tomb. Nevertheless, the legend refuses to disappear. Why do certain discoveries become surrounded by stories that outlive the evidence supporting them? Perhaps ancient monuments possess a unique ability to transform ordinary events into enduring myths. The tomb itself continues to inspire fresh investigation. High-resolution scans of its walls have prompted debates over possible hidden chambers concealed behind decorated plaster. Some researchers have suggested that undiscovered rooms may still exist beyond the painted surfaces, potentially connected to other royal burials. Others argue that natural variations within the rock have been mistaken for architectural features. Multiple surveys have produced differing interpretations, leaving the question unresolved. Even the remarkable treasures recovered from the burial continue to reveal unexpected details. The famous golden mask, nested coffins, ceremonial daggers, and personal belongings offer glimpses into royal life. Yet they also raise deeper questions about belief, identity, and preparation for the afterlife. Every carefully crafted object seems designed not merely for display, but for a journey whose destination ancient Egyptians regarded as entirely real. Standing within the narrow chambers today, surrounded by painted walls that have endured for more than 3,000 years, it becomes difficult to separate history from atmosphere. The air feels heavy with intention, every carving preserving a message meant for eternity rather than for curious visitors from a distant future. Perhaps that is why Tutankhamun's tomb continues to fascinate long after its treasures have been catalogued. It is no longer simply a remarkable archaeological discovery. It has become a reminder that even when a sealed chamber is opened, its deepest mysteries may remain untouched. How much of the young king's story still waits beyond the reach of surviving records, and what silent truths might still rest beneath the painted stone? Perhaps the greatest lesson from Tutankhamun's tomb is that opening an ancient chamber does not always dissolve its mysteries. Sometimes each answer uncovers several new questions. Across the Mediterranean, beneath the streets of modern Malta, another underground world offers exactly that experience, a place where archaeology, acoustics, ritual, and imagination meet in ways that continue to puzzle researchers today. Nothing on the surface prepares you for what lies below. A modest entrance leads downward through layers of carefully carved limestone. The daylight fades one step at a time until the outside world disappears completely. The air becomes cooler, quieter, almost motionless. Every sound seems softened by stone polished thousands of years ago. The deeper the descent, the more the underground complex begins to feel less like a structure built by human hands and more like a landscape shaped for another purpose entirely. This is the Hypogeum of Saflieni, one of the world's most extraordinary prehistoric monuments. Hidden beneath the town of Paola, the complex was discovered accidentally in 1902 during construction work. Builders digging foundations unexpectedly broke through the roof of an ancient underground chamber. What initially appeared to be a simple cavity gradually revealed itself as an immense labyrinth extending through multiple levels beneath the earth. Dating to roughly 4000 BC to 2500 BC, the Hypogeum predates Stonehenge and even the Egyptian pyramids. Entire rooms, corridors, stairways, niches, and ceremonial spaces were carved directly into solid limestone using remarkably simple tools. Every surface reflects deliberate planning. Nothing appears accidental. Unlike natural caves later adapted by people, the Hypogeum was intentionally created from the beginning. Thousands of tons of rock were carefully removed, transforming solid bedrock into an intricate subterranean sanctuary. Even today, imagining the labor involved is difficult. Why undertake such an enormous project beneath the ground? Most archaeologists believe the complex served both as a sacred temple and as a burial site. Excavations uncovered the remains of thousands of individuals, suggesting generations returned here over many centuries. Yet, it was not simply a place for the dead. Certain chambers appear designed for ceremonies, while architectural details imitate features normally found in buildings above ground, including carved doorways, decorative patterns, and curved ceilings sculpted directly into stone. One room in particular has fascinated visitors for decades. Known today as the Oracle Room, it appears surprisingly modest at first glance. Its walls are smooth, interrupted by carefully carved openings. Yet, when someone speaks in a deep voice from a specific position inside the chamber, something remarkable happens. The sound changes. Instead of fading naturally, low frequencies resonate throughout the surrounding chambers, creating vibrations that seem to travel through both the stone and the human body. Modern acoustic studies have confirmed that the room amplifies certain frequencies, particularly around 110 Hz, producing an unusually powerful resonance. Whether this effect resulted from deliberate engineering or fortunate coincidence remains an active subject of discussion. What would such sounds have meant to people living 6,000 years ago? Imagine standing underground, surrounded by darkness, illuminated only by flickering flames. A single voice begins speaking. Instead of hearing only words, listeners feel the sound vibrating through walls, floors, and even their own chests. The experience would have been deeply physical as much as audible. Some researchers propose that the acoustic properties enhanced religious ceremonies, making spoken rituals more emotionally powerful. Others suggest the resonance may have influenced perception, concentration, or meditation. Studies exploring how certain sound frequencies affect the human brain have inspired comparisons, although direct connections remain speculative. Beyond established research, broader theories naturally emerged. Some writers have suggested the Hypogeum functioned as an ancient center for sound-based knowledge, now largely forgotten. Others imagine it served initiatory rituals involving altered states of consciousness, where architecture and acoustics worked together to create carefully controlled psychological experiences. These ideas remain difficult to verify, yet the remarkable behavior of sound within the chambers ensures they continue to attract attention. The architecture itself introduces further puzzles. Certain passages appear to lead nowhere. Small openings connect chambers without obvious practical purpose. Niches overlook empty spaces. Stairways descend before ending abruptly against solid rock. Were these unfinished features, symbolic pathways, ritual elements whose meanings disappeared long ago? Every generation of researchers offers new interpretations, yet no single explanation accounts for every detail. Then there are the human remains. Excavations recovered the bones of approximately 7,000 individuals, representing men, women, and children. Some appear to have been carefully arranged after burial, rather than simply interred once and left undisturbed. This suggests complex funerary practices extending over centuries. Exactly how these ceremonies unfolded remains uncertain. Did mourners gather within these chambers for communal rituals? Did families return repeatedly to honor ancestors? Were certain rooms reserved for particular members of society? The stone preserves almost no written answers because the builders left no known written language. Without texts, archaeology becomes a conversation with silence. Another enduring mystery surrounds a small carved figurine discovered within the complex. Often called the Sleeping Lady, it depicts a reclining figure lying peacefully upon what appears to be a couch. The sculpture has inspired countless interpretations. Some see a goddess associated with fertility or rebirth. Others believe it represents sleep as a symbolic transition between life and death. Still others argue it may portray an ordinary individual participating in rituals whose meaning has vanished entirely. The figurine watches quietly while interpretations continue to change around it. Stories have also circulated beyond academic circles. Over the decades, visitors and writers have described unusual sensations within the underground chambers, feelings of disorientation, unexpected emotional responses, vivid dreams after visiting, or an overwhelming awareness of the surrounding silence. Such experiences are deeply personal and impossible to measure consistently. The confined spaces, unusual acoustics, limited light, and knowledge of the site's immense antiquity could naturally influence perception. Yet, for some, these explanations feel incomplete. Among the most persistent fringe legends is the claim that the Hypogeum once contained deeper passages leading far beyond the excavated complex. According to these accounts, unexplored tunnels extend beneath Malta, connecting to vast underground networks now sealed or inaccessible. Variations of the story describe hidden chambers, unknown civilizations, or sections deliberately closed to protect dangerous discoveries. Despite their popularity, no convincing archaeological evidence has confirmed these narratives. Still, the sheer scale of the existing complex encourages speculation. If ancient builders accomplished what is already visible, could undiscovered spaces still remain concealed beyond modern surveys? Today, access to the Hypogeum is strictly limited. Only a small number of visitors enter each day, helping preserve delicate conditions inside the chambers. Humidity, temperature, and carbon dioxide levels are carefully monitored because even human breath can gradually affect prehistoric surfaces. In a curious way, the monument continues to guard itself, not through hidden traps or ancient curses, but through the fragile balance that has preserved it for thousands of years. Standing within its carved halls, surrounded by stone shaped before the invention of writing in much of the world, time begins to feel strangely compressed. The people who created this underground sanctuary left behind almost no words, yet they transformed solid rock into a place that still speaks through atmosphere, geometry, and sound. Perhaps that is the Hypogeum's greatest mystery. Was it simply a remarkable burial complex built by an ingenious prehistoric society, or was it something more layered? A place where architecture itself became part of ritual, memory, and belief. As each generation uncovers new evidence while new questions continue to emerge, one thought lingers in the quiet darkness. If these chambers still challenge modern understanding after 6,000 years, what meanings might remain hidden within the stone, waiting for someone to hear what the silence has been preserving all along? If the Hypogeum of Saflieni reminds us that stone can preserve rituals long after their meaning has faded, The next mystery suggests that knowledge itself can disappear just as completely, not beneath layers of earth alone, but behind a wall deliberately built by human hands. Somewhere along the ancient Silk Road, an entire library was hidden from the world, not for years, but for centuries. The desert has a way of keeping secrets. Along the edge of China's Gobi Desert, where shifting sand meets weathered cliffs, a long line of caves stretches across the face of the rock like silent windows into another age. Wind moves through the valley with remarkable patience, carrying little more than dust and echoes. Travelers have crossed this landscape for thousands of years, following trade routes that connected distant civilizations through commerce, religion, and culture. Yet, among these countless caves, one concealed a mystery so unexpected that its discovery transformed the study of Asian history. This is the Library Cave of Mogao. Known today as Cave 17, it appears almost unremarkable from the outside. It is small compared to many neighboring grottos, lacking the dramatic scale of larger temple chambers. Nothing immediately suggests that behind its quiet walls rested one of the greatest collections of ancient manuscripts ever found. For centuries, it remained completely hidden. The Mogao caves themselves began taking shape around the 4th century AD as Buddhist monks, artists, and patrons carved sanctuaries into the sandstone cliffs near the oasis of Huang. Over generations, hundreds of caves were filled with vivid murals, painted ceilings, and carefully crafted sculptures. Together, they formed an immense religious complex, visited by pilgrims traveling across Asia. Some caves served meditation. Others became places of worship. Still, others preserved artistic traditions that blended influences from China, India, Persia, Central Asia, and beyond, reflecting the remarkable cultural exchange made possible by the Silk Road. Then, sometime around the early 11th century, something unusual happened. Inside one modest chamber, tens of thousands of manuscripts, paintings, embroidered banners, official documents, contracts, prayers, maps, musical scores, and personal writings were carefully stacked together. Once the room was filled, its entrance was sealed behind a plastered wall, effectively erasing its existence from memory. There it remained. Nearly 900 years passed before the hidden chamber was rediscovered in 1900 by a Taoist caretaker named Huang who had devoted himself to maintaining the cave complex. While clearing accumulated sand and repairing damaged structures, he noticed what appeared to be a concealed doorway behind a painted wall. When the barrier was opened, an astonishing sight emerged. Bundles of manuscripts filled the chamber from floor to ceiling. The dry desert climate had preserved fragile paper, silk, and textiles with extraordinary success. Some documents remained remarkably intact despite their great age. Scholars would eventually estimate that the hidden archive contained around 50,000 manuscripts and artifacts written in multiple languages, including Chinese, Tibetan, Sanskrit, Uyghur, and several others once spoken along the Silk Road. It was not merely a library. It was a time capsule. The documents revealed forgotten religious traditions, government administration, literature, philosophy, commerce, astronomy, medicine, mathematics, military affairs, and everyday life across centuries of cultural interaction. Some texts represented versions previously unknown to historians. Others preserved languages that had largely disappeared from common use. Yet, the greatest question emerged almost immediately. Why was the chamber sealed? Several explanations have been proposed, each supported by pieces of evidence, yet none has achieved universal agreement. One widely accepted theory suggests the cave functioned as a storage repository for sacred Buddhist manuscripts that had become worn or outdated but remained too spiritually important to destroy. Rather than discarding them, caretakers may have gathered the texts together and respectfully sealed the chamber. Another possibility points toward political uncertainty. During periods of regional conflict and changing dynasties, religious communities may have sought to protect valuable manuscripts from invasion, theft, or destruction. If dangerous times eventually passed while knowledge of the hiding place gradually faded, the sealed library could simply have been forgotten by later generations. It is an explanation both practical and strangely poignant. An archive preserved not through intention alone, but through collective memory quietly slipping away. Still, certain details continue to encourage debate. The organization of the manuscripts appears surprisingly deliberate. Some bundles were arranged according to subject or language. Others seem almost hastily stacked together. Was the sealing planned over many years, or completed during an urgent moment of crisis? Were additional materials removed before the entrance was closed? Could other hidden chambers once have existed nearby? The surviving evidence offers hints without complete answers. The manuscripts themselves deepen the mystery. Among religious scriptures are tax records, private letters, legal agreements, children's writing exercises, calendars, merchant accounts, poems, and personal notes. Together, they present an unusually intimate portrait of ordinary people whose voices rarely survive in ancient history. A monk copying sacred verses, a merchant recording transactions, a family settling legal matters, a student practicing handwriting. Each document captures a brief moment before returning to silence for nearly a millennium. There is something profoundly human about such preservation. Not every mystery surrounding the library cave concerns what was found. Some focus on what may have disappeared. In the years following its discovery, explorers, scholars, and collectors from several countries acquired large numbers of manuscripts, transporting them to museums and research institutions across the world. While these collections have allowed extensive scholarly study, they have also dispersed the archive that once existed as a single, unified collection. Reconstructing its original arrangement has become an ongoing challenge. Could the order of the manuscripts have contained information now impossible to recover? Might the placement of one text beside another have reflected patterns of use, ritual, or organization that vanished once the archive was divided? Sometimes, historical knowledge depends not only upon individual documents, but upon their relationships to one another. Beyond established scholarship, more speculative ideas have naturally emerged. Some writers have suggested the library cave concealed texts considered too controversial for their time, works preserving forgotten philosophies, alternative religious traditions, or knowledge deliberately removed from official history. Others imagine that only part of the original archive survived, while more sensitive materials were relocated before the chamber was sealed. A few even speculate about undiscovered companion caves still hidden within the vast Mogao complex. To date, archaeological evidence has not confirmed such claims. Yet, the very existence of Cave 17 demonstrates that an entire library remained hidden behind a wall for centuries, without attracting attention. That fact alone leaves room for imagination. The murals surrounding the library cave contribute another layer of quiet intrigue. Brilliant colors still illuminate Buddhist figures, celestial beings, landscapes, and symbolic scenes painted long before many medieval kingdoms elsewhere had fully emerged. Standing among these artworks, it becomes clear that the caves were never intended merely as storage spaces. They formed part of a living spiritual environment where art, devotion, scholarship, and memory coexisted. Knowledge here was not separated from belief. It was woven into daily life. Today, conservation efforts seek to protect both the manuscripts and the fragile cave paintings from the effects of time, tourism, and environmental change. Modern imaging technologies continue revealing faded writing invisible to the naked eye, allowing scholars to recover words thought permanently lost. Even now, new discoveries emerge from texts that have technically been known for more than a century. It is a reminder that rediscovery is rarely complete. Sometimes, the greatest revelations come not from finding new artifacts, but from learning to read familiar ones more carefully. Inside the quiet chamber, once hidden behind a simple plaster wall, countless voices waited patiently through dynasties, wars, shifting religions, changing languages, and the relentless passage of centuries. They asked for nothing except someone willing to listen, and perhaps the deepest mystery remains the simplest one. Why did one generation decide these voices should disappear from the world, trusting stone and silence to protect them? Was the library cave meant to preserve knowledge until humanity was ready to receive it again? Or are there still forgotten pages, hidden chambers, or untold stories resting somewhere beyond the walls, waiting for another accidental discovery to begin the conversation once more? If the hidden library of Mogao teaches us that words can sleep for centuries behind a sealed wall, the next mystery asks an even older question. What if the first great stories were never written at all? What if humanity's earliest messages were painted in darkness, deep beneath the earth, where almost no one was ever meant to live? Long before libraries, kingdoms, or recorded history, another underground world was waiting. In the rolling hills of southwestern France, forests blanket the landscape with an almost timeless stillness. Beneath the roots of ancient trees, hidden within layers of limestone shaped by water over countless ages, a network of chambers stretches into complete darkness. The entrance is modest, easily overlooked among the natural contours of the land. Yet, beyond that narrow opening lies one of the most extraordinary artistic achievements ever created by human hands. This is Lascaux Cave. Inside, the walls seem to awaken. Great bulls stride across uneven stone. Horses gallop through shadows. Deer, bison, ibex, and mysterious signs appear one after another, illuminated today by carefully controlled light, but originally revealed only by the flickering glow of animal fat lamps. The cave is not decorated in isolated patches. It unfolds like a carefully composed world, where every chamber introduces another collection of images that seem both familiar and strangely distant. These paintings were created around 17,000 years ago. Their age alone is astonishing. They belong to a period long before cities, metal tools, agriculture, or written language. Yet, the artists demonstrated remarkable technical skill. They used natural pigments made from charcoal, iron oxides, and manganese, carefully selecting contours in the rock to create depth and movement. Some animals appear almost alive, as the cave's uneven surfaces transform painted muscles into forms that shift with changing light. Even today, their craftsmanship remains deeply impressive. The cave itself came to modern attention in September 1940, when 4 teenagers exploring the countryside followed their dog after it disappeared into a hidden opening. Crawling inside, they encountered walls covered with paintings unlike anything they expected to find. Archaeologists soon recognized the extraordinary significance of the discovery. Lascaux quickly became known as one of humanity's greatest prehistoric treasures. Yet, admiration soon gave way to concern. Thousands of visitors entered the cave over the following years. Their breath introduced carbon dioxide, moisture, and microorganisms that gradually began affecting the fragile paintings. Algae appeared, minerals formed across the walls. Tiny changes in temperature and humidity threatened images that had survived untouched for millennia. Eventually, the difficult decision was made. The original cave closed to the public in 1963 to preserve what remained. Today, carefully constructed replicas allow visitors to experience its beauty while protecting the authentic paintings from further damage. In a curious way, Lascaux returned to silence almost as suddenly as it had emerged from it. But the greatest mystery has never been how the paintings survived. It is why they were created. For generations, archaeologists have proposed explanations, each revealing part of the picture while leaving important questions unanswered. One early interpretation suggested that the paintings formed part of hunting rituals. By depicting powerful animals upon the walls, prehistoric communities may have believed they could influence future hunts or establish symbolic control over the creatures sustaining their lives. It is an appealing idea. After all, many of the animals represented were central to survival. Yet, complications soon appeared. Some frequently hunted species receive surprisingly little attention, while dangerous predators and rarely hunted animals occupy prominent positions. If the paintings simply reflected practical concerns, why such selective choices? Another theory views the cave as a sacred ceremonial space rather than an everyday shelter. Evidence suggests people did not regularly live within the deepest chambers. Reaching many painted sections required navigating narrow passages, climbing through confined spaces, and carrying light far into complete darkness. Creating elaborate artwork under such conditions demanded considerable effort. Why travel so deep underground? Perhaps the journey itself carried meaning. Some researchers believe the cave functioned as a place reserved for rituals, initiations, or gatherings involving only selected members of the community. The darkness, echoing chambers, and flickering light would have transformed familiar surroundings into something profoundly different. Not merely a cave, a threshold. The paintings themselves deepen the mystery. Many animals appear with remarkable realism, yet humans are almost entirely absent. When human figures do appear, they often seem simplified or partially transformed. One of the cave's most puzzling scenes depicts a bird-headed human lying before an injured bison, while a bird rests upon a staff nearby. No one knows exactly what this scene represents. A hunting accident, a myth, a vision, a spiritual experience. Without written explanations, every interpretation remains tentative. Alongside the animals are hundreds of abstract symbols, dots, lines, branching marks, rectangles, and geometric signs whose meanings remain unknown. Some appear repeatedly throughout the cave, suggesting they communicated ideas understood by those who created them. Could they represent early forms of symbolic language, clan identities, seasonal observations, astronomical events, or meanings entirely unlike anything modern observers would recognize? The cave offers no direct answers. Modern technology has revealed further surprises. Detailed laser scanning and digital mapping show that the placement of paintings was far from random. Artists carefully selected specific wall surfaces whose natural curves enhanced the appearance of movement. Some compositions seem intentionally positioned where acoustics change dramatically, leading a number of researchers to explore possible relationships between sound and imagery. Could certain chambers have been chosen because voices echoed differently there? Might music, chanting, or rhythmic percussion once have accompanied the painted scenes? Experimental studies suggest some decorated areas correspond with locations possessing distinctive acoustic qualities. Whether this reflects deliberate planning or coincidence remains uncertain, yet the possibility introduces another fascinating layer to the cave's design. Beyond mainstream research, broader theories continue to emerge. Some writers have proposed that Lascaux preserves sophisticated astronomical knowledge encoded through animal arrangements and symbolic markings. Others imagine the paintings record ancient constellations or seasonal cycles remembered across generations. A few researchers have suggested the cave served as a map of spiritual journeys, where each chamber represented stages in beliefs surrounding life, death, and transformation. These ideas remain speculative. The available evidence neither fully confirms nor entirely dismisses them. That uncertainty has become part of Lascaux' enduring appeal. There is also the remarkable psychological effect reported by many who study the cave. Even through photographs or carefully reconstructed replicas, the paintings possess an unusual vitality. The animals do not appear frozen in time. Instead, they seem caught in motion, emerging from the stone itself as though the cave had always contained them, waiting only for someone to reveal their outlines. Perhaps this impression results from extraordinary artistic talent, or perhaps the artists intentionally collaborated with the natural shapes of the rock, allowing the landscape itself to participate in the images. The distinction is subtle but profound. Rather than imposing pictures upon stone, they may have believed the figures already existed within it. Across thousands of years, countless civilizations have left behind monuments proclaiming power, wealth, conquest, and kingship. Lascaux offers something quieter. No names identify its creators. No rulers claim ownership. No written inscription explains its purpose. Only silent images remain, preserved through an unimaginable span of time. Standing before these ancient paintings, separated from their creators by 17 millennia, it becomes impossible not to wonder what conversations unfolded beneath those flickering lamps. What stories were spoken as pigments met stone? What beliefs guided the hands that transformed darkness into a gallery, unlike any other in human history? Perhaps the greatest mystery of Lascaux is not what the paintings depict, but what they were meant to awaken within those who entered the cave. Were they memories, prayers, lessons, visions, or something that no surviving language can fully express? And if the walls still hold meanings beyond our understanding, how many of humanity's oldest thoughts continue to wait patiently in the silence, hidden behind images we have not yet learned to read? Here's the next section, written to transition smoothly from Lascaux Cave while maintaining the same slow, immersive, documentary style. If Lascaux leaves us wondering whether prehistoric paintings were messages, rituals, or memories preserved in stone, another cave in southern France quietly challenges something even more fundamental. What if humanity learned to create breathtaking art far earlier than anyone once believed? And if that assumption changed, what else about our earliest ancestors might still be waiting to be rewritten? The entrance is almost invisible. Hidden within the limestone cliffs overlooking the Ardèche River, a narrow opening disappears into darkness. Cool air drifts from the earth, carrying the faint scent of damp stone untouched by sunlight. Beyond the entrance, winding passages descend into an underground world where time seems to have stopped. Silence settles over every chamber. Even the smallest sound fades into the rock, leaving only the quiet presence of something unimaginably old. This is Chauvet Cave. Unlike many ancient sites that reveal traces of repeated human occupation, Chauvet feels strangely untouched. The cave appears less like an abandoned shelter and more like a perfectly preserved moment. Every footprint, every charcoal mark, every broken fragment seems suspended exactly where it was left tens of thousands of years ago. Its modern discovery came by chance. In December 1994, 3 amateur cave explorers, Jean-Marie Chauvet, Eliette Brunel, and Christian Hilaire, noticed a faint current of air emerging from a concealed opening. Curious, they squeezed through the narrow passage and entered a vast underground network that no one had seen for millennia. What greeted them was astonishing. The cave walls were covered with hundreds of paintings and engravings depicting animals with extraordinary confidence and detail. Horses, lions, rhinoceroses, mammoths, cave bears, bison, ibex, panthers, owls, and many other creatures emerged from the limestone as though frozen in motion. Some appeared to run. Others seemed to stalk unseen prey. overlapping outlines created an impression of movement rarely associated with prehistoric art. When scientists began dating the charcoal used in many of the drawings, the results were almost unbelievable. The artwork was approximately 36,000 years old. At first, some specialists questioned the findings. For decades, many researchers had assumed that artistic sophistication developed gradually over thousands of years. According to that expectation, paintings displaying such remarkable technique should have belonged to a much later period. Yet, repeated analyses continued supporting the astonishing age. If the dates were correct, and today they are widely accepted, it meant that humans capable of creating artistic masterpieces existed far earlier than previously imagined. The discovery did not merely reveal ancient paintings, it challenged assumptions about the origins of creativity itself. Walking through Chauvet, one immediately notices something unusual. Many of the animals depicted were not common hunting targets. Instead of focusing primarily on deer or other prey, the artist devoted remarkable attention to predators. Cave lions appear repeatedly. So do rhinoceroses, cave bears, wolves, and panthers. These powerful creatures dominate the walls with striking confidence. Why? Some archaeologists suggest these animals carried symbolic or spiritual importance, extending beyond everyday survival. Others argue the paintings may reflect careful observation of the surrounding environment, documenting species familiar to Ice Age communities. Still, no single explanation fully accounts for the overwhelming presence of predators. Another intriguing feature lies in the artist's remarkable understanding of movement. Rather than drawing static figures, they frequently used multiple outlines to suggest motion. A lion's legs overlap as though advancing. Rhinoceroses appear to charge one another. Herds seem to flow across the stone with surprising energy. Viewed by the flickering light of handheld torches, these layered images may have appeared almost animated. Could this effect have been intentional? Some researchers believe the artist deliberately anticipated changing firelight, allowing shadows and shifting illumination to create an illusion of movement impossible to appreciate under steady modern lighting. If so, the cave was not simply decorated. It became part of the artwork itself. The stone, the darkness, and the flame all worked together. Evidence inside the cave also hints at carefully planned human activity. Footprints preserved in soft clay reveal that people ventured deep into the chambers, sometimes accompanied by children. One famous track records the footsteps of a child walking beside the paw prints of a wolf, although they were not necessarily made at the same time. Nearby, charcoal fragments indicate torches once illuminated passages far beyond natural daylight. These traces are deeply personal. Someone stood here. Someone carried fire through these corridors. Someone paused before these walls and decided exactly where each image should appear. Yet, the cave contains more than human presence. Thousands of cave bear bones have been discovered throughout its chambers. During long periods when humans were absent, bears used Chauvet as a den for hibernation. Skull impressions remain visible in the clay where these enormous animals once rested. One particular discovery has inspired lasting fascination. A cave bear skull sits carefully positioned upon a large stone block near the center of one chamber. Around it, smaller stones appear arranged in a manner some researchers consider intentional. Was this simply coincidence? Did natural processes place the skull there over thousands of years? Or did prehistoric visitors deliberately position it as part of a ceremony or symbolic act? The available evidence allows several possibilities, yet no definitive answer. The atmosphere surrounding the cave naturally encourages broader speculation. Some writers have suggested Chauvet functioned as a sacred sanctuary reserved for select individuals, rather than an ordinary gathering place. Others imagine the painted chambers played a role in rituals involving storytelling, initiation, or communication with spiritual forces believed to inhabit the natural world. These ideas remain difficult to verify. No written records survive. No voices explain the meaning behind the images. Only stone and pigment remain. There are also more speculative interpretations. Certain researchers have explored whether recurring symbols throughout the cave might represent early systems of communication rather than purely artistic decoration. Others wonder whether the paintings preserve observations of changing climates, seasonal migrations, or celestial events remembered across generations. A few fringe theories even propose that the remarkable sophistication of the artwork suggests forgotten chapters of human intellectual development that archaeology has only begun to uncover. None of these ideas has gained broad acceptance. Yet, Chauvet continues reminding researchers that discoveries once considered impossible can eventually become established fact. Before 1994, few expected paintings of such complexity to exist at such an early date. The cave itself became evidence that human history still contains surprises capable of reshaping long-held beliefs. Perhaps one of the cave's greatest mysteries is its extraordinary preservation. At some point, thousands of years ago, a massive rockfall sealed the original entrance. The collapse isolated the chambers from the outside world, protecting fragile drawings, footprints, torch marks, and animal remains from weather, sunlight, and later human activity. It was an accident of geology. Yet it created one of the most remarkable archaeological time capsules ever discovered. Today, access to Chauvet Cave is strictly limited. Scientists carefully monitor temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide, and microscopic organisms to preserve its delicate environment. Like Lascaux before it, the original cave remains largely closed, while a meticulously constructed replica allows visitors to experience its beauty without threatening the ancient artwork. In many ways, the cave continues doing what it has done for tens of thousands of years. It keeps its distance. Standing before these images, it becomes difficult to think of the artists as distant or primitive. Their understanding of movement, composition, perspective, and observation feels surprisingly familiar. Across 36 millennia, they still communicate without words, inviting modern eyes into a conversation that began long before history was ever written. Perhaps that is Chauvet's deepest mystery. Were these paintings expressions of belief, records of memory, acts of devotion, or glimpses into ways of thinking that have almost entirely vanished? As new technologies continue revealing details invisible to earlier generations, one quiet possibility remains. If humanity's oldest masterpieces still have the power to overturn what we thought we knew about our origins, what other forgotten chapters of our earliest story might still lie hidden in caves that have yet to be found? If Chauvet Cave reminds us that humanity's oldest artists left behind questions that still resist simple answers, the next mystery carries us forward through tens of thousands of years to a civilization that believed death itself could be carefully mapped. Here, the unknown was not merely feared. It was studied, illustrated, and transformed into an elaborate journey beyond the limits of ordinary life. The desert greets each sunrise with remarkable silence. Across the rugged cliffs of Egypt's Valley of the Kings, pale limestone reflects the morning light with almost blinding intensity. At first glance, the landscape appears empty, shaped only by wind, rock, and time. Yet, beneath these barren hills lies an underground city of memory, where generations of pharaohs prepared for eternity in chambers carved deep into the mountain itself. Among them is one tomb that many historians consider the finest ever created: the tomb of Seti I. Known today as Cave 17, It extends farther into the bedrock than almost any other royal tomb in the valley. Its corridors descend through carefully planned passages, opening into magnificent halls supported by carved pillars before continuing even deeper into darkness. Every surface seems alive with color. Walls glow with finely painted figures, sacred symbols, celestial maps, and columns of hieroglyphs so precisely executed that they still appear fresh, despite the passing of more than 3,000 years. Walking through these chambers is unlike entering a burial place. It feels more like stepping inside a carefully illustrated book. Every wall tells part of a larger story. Seti I ruled during Egypt's 19th dynasty, around the 13th century BC. He was remembered as a capable military leader and an ambitious builder who restored temples, expanded monuments, and strengthened the kingdom inherited by his son, Ramesses II. His tomb reflects not only royal wealth, but an extraordinary investment in religious knowledge. Unlike many earlier royal burials, KV-17 contains extensive versions of several sacred funerary texts, including passages from the Book of Gates, the Book of the Dead, the Amduat, and other compositions describing the soul's passage through the underworld. These were not simply decorations, they were guides. According to ancient Egyptian belief, death marked the beginning of a difficult voyage through unseen realms. The deceased king would encounter divine beings, mysterious gateways, dangerous obstacles, and moments of judgment before achieving rebirth alongside the sun god. Every image painted upon the walls carried meaning. Every inscription formed part of a spiritual map intended to guide the pharaoh safely through eternity. Yet, despite the remarkable detail, many aspects of these texts remain open to interpretation. Were they understood literally, symbolically, as ritual performances recited during burial ceremonies, or did they describe profound spiritual experiences beyond ordinary language? Modern scholarship continues exploring these possibilities, but complete certainty remains out of reach. The tomb itself has a history nearly as intriguing as the king it was built to honor. It was rediscovered in 1817 by the Italian explorer Giovanni Battista Belzoni after centuries of concealment beneath accumulated debris. As workers cleared the entrance, passage after passage emerged, each revealing artwork of astonishing quality. Belzoni described the discovery with unmistakable admiration, recognizing that he had entered one of Egypt's greatest surviving monuments. Yet disappointment soon followed. The royal sarcophagus remained, carved from a single block of translucent alabaster and decorated with exquisite inscriptions, but Seti's mummy was gone. Like many royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings, K517 had been robbed in antiquity. The treasures intended to accompany the king into the afterlife had largely disappeared long before modern explorers arrived. Still, the tomb retained something even more valuable. Its painted walls endured. Unlike precious metals easily removed by thieves, the intricate scenes covering hundreds of meters of corridors remained fixed to the stone. Today, they preserve one of the most complete visual records of ancient Egyptian beliefs concerning life after death. Yet, even here, mysteries persist. One of the most intriguing features lies beyond the burial chamber itself. A long descending corridor continues deeper beneath the mountain, extending well beyond the king's sarcophagus. Early explorers followed it as far as possible before reaching unfinished sections disappearing into solid rock. Later, excavations revealed that this mysterious passage stretches for well over 100 meters. Why was it built? Several explanations have been proposed. Some archaeologists believe the corridor simply formed part of the original construction process before work ceased unexpectedly. Others argue it held symbolic significance, representing the king's continuing journey into the underworld beyond the visible burial chamber. A few researchers have suggested the passage may have been intended to reach a subterranean water table, echoing ancient concepts linking the afterlife with the hidden waters beneath the earth. No consensus has emerged. The corridor continues inviting speculation precisely because its purpose remains uncertain. The astronomical imagery painted throughout the tomb introduces another layer of fascination. Ceilings depict stars arranged across deep blue backgrounds, while other chambers illustrate complex cosmological scenes describing the nightly voyage of the sun through darkness before its rebirth at dawn. These compositions reveal an extraordinary attempt to understand existence itself, life, death, time, the movement of the heavens. All became interconnected within the architecture of the tomb. Some scholars view these images primarily as religious symbolism. Others suggest they preserve surprisingly sophisticated astronomical observations encoded within sacred tradition. Both perspectives continue contributing valuable insights, and neither entirely exhausts the richness of the artwork. Beyond established archaeology, broader theories naturally surround KV-17. Some writers have proposed that the extraordinary precision of its decoration reflects initiatory knowledge reserved for Egypt's highest priests. Others speculate that hidden mathematical relationships embedded within the architecture remain only partially recognized. A few suggest undiscovered chambers could still exist beyond known passages, concealed by collapses or unfinished excavations. To date, archaeological investigations have produced no conclusive evidence supporting such claims. Yet history has repeatedly demonstrated that Egypt continues revealing unexpected discoveries, often in places believed thoroughly explored. Another quiet mystery concerns the emotional atmosphere of the tomb itself. Visitors frequently describe an unusual sense of stillness within its painted halls. The narrow corridors, descending gradually beneath the mountain, create the impression of moving ever farther from the ordinary world. Combined with the remarkable preservation of the artwork, the experience can feel less like entering ruins than encountering a place waiting patiently for someone to continue reading where ancient priests once stopped. Such impressions are deeply personal. The silence, confined spaces, shifting light, and awareness of immense antiquity naturally influence perception. Yet, they also remind us that monuments communicate through atmosphere as much as through stone. Conservation has become an ongoing challenge. Moisture, changing temperatures, dust, and centuries of human visitation have gradually affected some painted surfaces. Restoration efforts seek to preserve the delicate pigments without altering their original character, balancing access with protection in much the same way as other fragile sites explored throughout this journey. Even with modern technology, countless details remain under careful study. High-resolution imaging continues revealing faded inscriptions, corrections made by ancient artists, and subtle variations in painting techniques invisible to earlier generations of researchers. The tomb has not finished speaking. It simply speaks slowly. Standing within the chambers of Seti I, surrounded by texts intended to guide a king beyond death itself, one begins to understand that the builders were attempting something far greater than constructing a monument. They sought to preserve an entire vision of the universe, one in which every star, every gateway, every prayer, and every carefully carved image formed part of a single cosmic order extending beyond human life. Perhaps that is why the tomb of Seti I continues to inspire such quiet fascination. It is not merely a masterpiece of ancient craftsmanship, nor simply the resting place of a forgotten ruler. It is an invitation into a worldview that remains only partially understood. And as the long descending corridor disappears into darkness beyond the known chambers, one question lingers with remarkable persistence. Did the builders intend us to believe the journey ended where the stone now stops? Or were they pointing toward mysteries that still lie hidden, somewhere deeper beneath the mountain. If the tomb of Seti I reveals how an ancient civilization transformed death into a carefully illustrated journey through the cosmos, the next mystery carries us across oceans to another culture that viewed the afterlife through equally profound symbolism. Once again, a ruler was laid to rest beneath stone. Once again, intricate carvings became a language meant to outlive their creator. And once again, a single burial chamber would raise questions that continue to inspire both careful scholarship and remarkable speculation. Deep within the tropical forests of southern Mexico, towering limestone temples emerge above the dense green canopy like silent mountains built by human hands. Mist gathers between ancient structures at dawn, while the sounds of birds and insects drift through plazas that once echoed with ceremonies, royal processions, and sacred rituals. Vines now embrace weathered walls, softening sharp edges without erasing the extraordinary ambition that shaped this city centuries ago. Here stands the ancient Maya city of Palenque. Among its graceful temples rises one monument unlike any other. Known today as the Temple of the Inscriptions, its broad stairway climbs toward a sanctuary overlooking the surrounding landscape. At first glance, the building appears to be another magnificent ceremonial pyramid. Yet, beneath its stone floors, concealed from the outside world for more than 1,000 years, rested one of the most remarkable royal tombs ever discovered in the Americas. It belonged to Kinich Janab Pakal, remembered simply as Pakal the Great. Pakal ruled Palenque for nearly 70 years during the 7th century AD, guiding the city through a period of political strength, architectural achievement, and artistic refinement. His reign left an enduring mark upon Maya civilization, and the monument constructed to honor him reflected that extraordinary legacy. For centuries, however, no one suspected what lay beneath the temple. In the early 1950s, Mexican archaeologist Alberto Ruz Luillier noticed something unusual inside the temple. Stone floor slabs contained carefully fitted plugs, unlike those elsewhere in the structure. After removing them, his team uncovered the beginning of a hidden staircase filled almost completely with rubble. The excavation became an exercise in patience. Workers spent years clearing the blocked passage, removing countless tons of stone and debris one section at a time. As the staircase descended deeper into the pyramid, anticipation steadily grew. Eventually, after reaching the bottom, the explorers encountered a sealed doorway. Beyond it waited a chamber untouched since antiquity. At its center rested an enormous stone sarcophagus carved from a single limestone block. The chamber's walls displayed elegant stucco figures, while offerings surrounded the king's resting place. Above all, one object immediately captured attention: the sarcophagus lid. Measuring several tons and covered with astonishingly intricate carvings, it has become one of the most discussed works of ancient American art. At its center, Pakal appears surrounded by elaborate symbols representing the Maya understanding of life, death, rebirth, and the cosmic order. To Maya scholars, the imagery reflects a sophisticated religious worldview. The central figure is generally understood as Pakal positioned within the Great World Tree, the symbolic axis connecting the heavens, the earthly realm, and the underworld. Celestial imagery, sacred serpents, ancestral symbols, and divine motifs combine to illustrate the king's transformation after death. Rather than depicting an ordinary burial, the carving presents a spiritual passage between worlds. It is a masterpiece of Maya cosmology. Yet, the remarkable complexity of the scene has also invited interpretations far beyond mainstream archaeology. During the 20th century, some writers argued that the carving resembled a person operating a sophisticated machine. They pointed to Pakal's posture, the apparent controls surrounding him, and shapes they interpreted as mechanical components or even propulsion systems. These ideas became widely known through popular books proposing ancient contact with advanced civilizations beyond Earth. The comparison captured public imagination. Viewed without cultural context, the image can appear surprisingly unusual. However, detailed study of Maya art reveals that every major element of the carving has parallels elsewhere in Maya religious symbolism. The apparent machine consists of recognizable mythological imagery familiar throughout Maya iconography. The figure's position reflects established beliefs concerning death and rebirth rather than technological operation. Even so, the discussion continues. Not because the evidence supports extraordinary claims, but because remarkable works of ancient art often invite modern observers to interpret unfamiliar symbolism through familiar ideas. Perhaps the more fascinating mystery is not whether the carving depicts impossible technology, but why its symbolism remains so visually compelling across cultures separated by more than 1,000 years. The tomb itself offers additional questions. Pakal's burial was prepared with extraordinary care. His body was adorned with an elegant funerary mask assembled from pieces of green jade, a material the Maya associated with life, renewal, and preciousness. Jade ornaments covered much of the king's body, while finely crafted offerings accompanied him into eternity. These objects reveal immense craftsmanship. They also reflect a civilization whose understanding of kingship intertwined deeply with religion and the cycles of nature. Hieroglyphic inscriptions throughout the temple provide another extraordinary resource. Unlike many ancient monuments whose builders left few written records, the Temple of the Inscriptions contains one of the longest known Maya texts. It records royal genealogy, historical events, ceremonial dates, and aspects of Pakal's reign with remarkable precision. Over decades, advances in deciphering Maya writing have transformed understanding of these inscriptions, allowing historians to reconstruct much of the king's life. Yet, gaps remain. Some damaged passages resist complete translation. Other symbols continue inspiring debate among specialists. Every improvement in decipherment answers certain questions while raising others. The architecture itself contributes to the mystery. The hidden staircase leading downward from the temple's summit appears carefully integrated into the monument's original design. Why conceal the entrance so thoroughly? Was secrecy intended primarily to discourage tomb robbers? Did the descent itself symbolize the soul's journey into the underworld? Or was access restricted to priests performing rituals long after the king's burial? The arrangement encourages more than one interpretation. Below the burial chamber, archaeologists also discovered evidence suggesting careful planning extended throughout the pyramid's construction. Every architectural decision appears connected to religious symbolism, astronomical orientation, and royal authority. Nothing seems accidental. Beyond established scholarship, broader theories continue circulating. Some writers suggest undiscovered chambers may still exist beneath or around the Temple of the Inscriptions. Others imagine additional royal archives hidden elsewhere within Palenque, preserving texts that could reshape understanding of Maya history. A few speculate that the city's alignment with surrounding mountains and celestial events reflects knowledge only partially recognized today. To date, archaeological investigations have not confirmed such ideas. Yet, Palenque remains an active field of research, and new discoveries continue emerging from the surrounding jungle. Structures once thought completely buried have gradually reappeared through excavation, reminding us how much of the ancient city still lies concealed beneath vegetation and soil. There is also the atmosphere of the tomb itself. Descending the long staircase into cool darkness, it becomes easy to understand why visitors often describe a profound sense of transition. Each step leads farther from sunlight, farther from the bustling plazas above, until only stone walls and quiet air remain. At the bottom waits not simply a burial chamber, but a carefully designed meeting point between memory, ritual, and belief. It is difficult to stand before Pakal's great sarcophagus without sensing that every carved line was intended to communicate something essential, not to us, but to eternity. Today, modern scanning technologies, conservation methods, and ongoing archaeological work continue revealing subtle details invisible to earlier generations. Pigment traces, construction techniques, and inscriptions still yield new information. The tomb has become less mysterious in some respects than it was decades ago, yet its deeper meanings remain wonderfully complex. Perhaps that is the enduring power of Pakal's resting place. It reminds us that ancient civilizations often understood the universe through symbolic languages richer than simple explanation. The carvings upon the sarcophagus are neither random decoration nor easy puzzle. They belong to a worldview whose full depth we may never completely recover. And as the Temple of the Inscriptions continues overlooking the forests of Palenque, one quiet question remains suspended between history and imagination. Did Pakal's builders preserve everything they wished future generations to discover? Or are there still hidden passages, forgotten texts, or unseen meanings waiting beneath the stones, patiently keeping their silence for just a little longer? If the tomb of Pakal the Great reveals how ancient civilizations transformed stone into a language of memory, the next mystery takes us into a place where nature itself became the architect. There are no carved inscriptions here, no royal symbols, and no human hands shaping the walls. Instead, the mystery comes from a hidden world formed over unimaginable spans of time, a place where the earth created structures so extraordinary that they seem almost beyond ordinary experience. Deep beneath the dry landscape of northern Mexico, far below the surface of the Chihuahuan Desert, lies a chamber unlike any other known on Earth. The journey begins in darkness. There are no ancient stairways leading downward, no decorated entrances, no signs that reveal what waits below. Instead, the entrance belongs to a modern mining complex near the city of Nica, in the state of Chihuahua. Beneath layers of limestone and rock, hidden hundreds of meters underground, exists a cavern where enormous crystals rise from the ground like frozen pillars from another world. This is the Cave of the Crystals. Known in Spanish as Cueva de los Cristales, the chamber was discovered in the year 2000 by miners working for the Nica mine. They were not searching for a lost temple or an archaeological treasure. They were pursuing valuable minerals deep beneath the desert when they unexpectedly entered a space filled with formations unlike anything they had encountered before. The sight was almost impossible to comprehend. Giant crystals of gypsum stretched across the chamber, some reaching lengths of more than 10 meters and weighing many tons. They formed translucent beams and massive blades, crossing the cavern floor and walls in a natural architecture created not by human design, but by the slow processes of geology. For anyone standing inside, the cave would appear almost unreal. Yet every crystal followed the patient laws of nature. The explanation behind their formation is a story measured not in centuries, but in hundreds of thousands of years. Long ago, volcanic activity beneath the region created a magma chamber that heated groundwater flowing through cracks in the surrounding rock. This water became rich in minerals, including calcium sulfate. Over immense periods, the temperature conditions inside the underground chamber remained unusually stable, allowing gypsum crystals to grow at an exceptionally slow and steady pace. The result was a rare geological environment. a hidden chamber where crystals had the time, space, and chemical conditions needed to become enormous. The discovery changed scientific understanding of crystal growth. Many gypsum crystals found elsewhere form quickly and remain relatively small. The formations at Nika demonstrated what can happen when nature maintains perfect conditions for an extraordinary length of time. But the cave's beauty came with a severe challenge. The environment inside was almost impossible for humans to endure. Temperatures reached around 50 degrees Celsius, while humidity approached nearly 100%. Under those conditions, the human body struggles to cool itself. Researchers could only remain inside for short periods while wearing specialized protective equipment, including cooling suits filled with ice packs. The cave was not simply difficult to explore, it was actively hostile to human presence. This created a fascinating contradiction. A place that had existed silently for hundreds of thousands of years became one of the most difficult environments ever studied by scientists. Every expedition required careful planning. Every measurement had to be completed quickly. Every moment inside the chamber carried physical risk. Yet, despite those challenges, researchers discovered valuable information about Earth's hidden processes. The crystals revealed clues about ancient water systems, mineral formation, and the geological history of the region. By studying tiny fluid pockets trapped inside the crystals, scientists could examine conditions that existed long before humans walked the planet. In a sense, the crystals became time capsules. They preserved fragments of an ancient underground world. But like many extraordinary discoveries, the Cave of the Crystals inspired questions beyond established science. Some have wondered whether such enormous formations represent processes still not fully understood. Others have imagined that hidden chambers elsewhere on Earth may contain equally remarkable natural structures waiting to be discovered. Because the cave appeared so unusual, some speculative interpretations suggested that it might reveal forgotten knowledge about Earth's history, or even challenge assumptions about the planet's hidden environments. Mainstream geology, however, explains the cave through natural processes that are already understood. Heat, water, minerals, pressure, and time working together under rare circumstances. Still, the rarity itself remains fascinating. How many other places exist where nature has quietly created something extraordinary, only waiting for the right moment to be revealed? The Cave of the Crystals also raises another question. What does it mean to discover a place that was never meant for human eyes? Unlike ancient monuments, which were intentionally created to communicate across generations, these crystals carried no message from a civilization. They were not built to be admired. They were not designed with human visitors in mind. Their existence was accidental from a human perspective. And yet, once discovered, they became part of humanity's own story. There is something deeply mysterious about the idea that beneath ordinary landscapes, hidden worlds can exist completely separate from the surface. Above Nika, people lived their daily lives beneath the desert sun, unaware that an extraordinary underground cathedral of crystal had been growing silently below them for ages. The cave also reminds us of the fragile relationship between discovery and preservation. Once mining operations altered the underground conditions, the natural environment that created the crystals began changing. After the mine's operations shifted and the chambers were no longer maintained, the Cave of the Crystals became inaccessible once again. Rising temperatures and flooding conditions returned the chamber closer to its original state. The very process that allowed humans to discover the cave also threatened the conditions that made exploration possible. A brief window opened, then slowly began to close. Today, the crystals remain protected within the depths of the Earth. Researchers continue studying samples and data collected during earlier expeditions, but direct access to the chamber is extremely limited. The cave exists almost like a message written in stone and mineral, visible only during a rare moment when human curiosity and geological circumstances intersected. Standing before images of those enormous formations, it becomes difficult not to consider the scale of time involved. Human civilizations rise and disappear within a few thousand years. Languages change. Cities become ruins. Memories fade. But deep beneath the desert, crystals continued growing silently, following rhythms far older than humanity itself. Perhaps the greatest mystery of the Cave of the Crystals is not how these formations were created. Science can explain much of that remarkable process. The deeper mystery is what other hidden landscapes remain beyond our awareness, forming slowly in darkness while the surface world changes above them. If one forgotten chamber beneath Mexico could reveal a world so unexpected, how many other secrets might still exist beneath mountains, oceans, and deserts, waiting not for someone to create them, but simply for someone to find them? If the Cave of the Crystals reveals the hidden artistry of nature itself, where time and geology created a world beyond human imagination, the next mystery returns us to the hands of humanity's earliest creators. Here, the wonder does not come from minerals growing silently beneath the earth, but from something far more personal: the desire to leave a mark, to communicate, and perhaps to speak across thousands of years. Deep in northern Spain, beneath the quiet green hills of Cantabria, lies an entrance that appears almost ordinary. The surrounding landscape is peaceful, covered with forests, limestone formations, and open fields shaped by centuries of wind and rain. Nothing on the surface suggests that beneath this gentle terrain rests one of the most important artistic discoveries in human history. Beyond the entrance, darkness takes over. The air becomes cool and still. The sounds of the outside world disappear, replaced by the silence of stone. Then, gradually, shapes begin to emerge from the walls. Massive animals appear beneath the shadows: bison with powerful bodies, horses frozen in motion, deer watching from the rock, and mysterious signs whose meanings remain uncertain. This is Altamira Cave. Often described as the Sistine Chapel of prehistoric art, Altamira represents one of the most remarkable examples of Upper Paleolithic painting ever discovered. The images were created approximately 14,000 to 20,000 years ago by people who lived long before written records, cities, or organized states existed. Yet, when modern eyes first saw these paintings, many struggled to believe they were truly ancient. The story of Altamira's discovery began in the 19th century. In 1868, a local hunter discovered the entrance to the cave near the town of Santillana del Mar. Years later, amateur archaeologist Marcelino Sanz de Sautuola explored the site with his young daughter Maria. In 1879, while examining the cave, Maria noticed something extraordinary in a chamber where her father had not expected to find anything significant. Above them, on the ceiling, were paintings. Dozens of large animals appeared across the stone surface, their forms enhanced by the natural curves of the rock. The bison seemed to possess volume and movement. Their bodies followed the shape of the ceiling, as though the artist had not simply painted onto the stone but worked together with it. Sautuola recognized the importance of the discovery. Many scholars at the time did not. The idea that prehistoric humans could create such sophisticated artwork seemed impossible to many 19th century researchers. Some accused Sautuola of discovering a modern forgery. The paintings appeared too advanced, too carefully designed, too artistic to belong to people considered primitive by the assumptions of the era. Only later, after similar discoveries across Europe, did scientific opinion begin to change. Altamira was real, and it transformed understanding of early human creativity. One of the most fascinating aspects of the cave is the technical skill behind the paintings. The artists used natural pigments made from minerals such as iron oxides, charcoal, and other materials available in their environment. They combined colors, shading, and engraved outlines to create depth and realism. Some images appear almost three-dimensional because the artists incorporated the natural shape of the ceiling itself. The uneven surface of the cave became part of the composition. A raised section of stone became the shoulder of a bison. A curve became the shape of a back. A natural crack became part of an animal's outline. Were these choices simply practical methods for making images appear realistic? Or did the artists believe the animals already existed within the stone, waiting to be revealed? This question has fascinated researchers for generations. The purpose of the paintings remains one of Altamira's greatest mysteries. One widely accepted explanation is that the images were connected to symbolic or ritual practices. The animals depicted were important creatures within the environment of Ice Age communities, and creating their images may have been linked to beliefs about hunting, survival, or spiritual relationships with the natural world. However, the reality appears more complex. Many painted animals were not necessarily the species most commonly hunted. Some powerful creatures, including bison and horses, dominate the walls despite unclear connections to daily survival. This has led researchers to consider broader possibilities. Perhaps the cave was not simply a place for practical communication. Perhaps it was a sacred space. A place where stories were preserved, ceremonies were performed, or communities connected with forces they believed existed beyond the visible world. The location itself adds to the mystery. Unlike ordinary living areas, the deepest decorated sections of Altamira are not places where people would have spent everyday life. Reaching them required entering narrow passages and moving far away from natural light. Visitors would have needed fire to navigate the darkness. Imagine entering such a chamber thousands of years ago. The flickering glow of a torch reveals enormous animals surrounding you. Shadows move across the walls. The painted figures appear to shift as the light changes. Would the experience have been purely visual, or was the cave designed as an environment where sight, sound, darkness, and imagination combined into something more powerful? Some researchers have explored the role of acoustics within prehistoric caves, suggesting that certain spaces may have been chosen because voices and sounds behaved differently there. Chanting, storytelling, or ritual sounds could have transformed the experience of viewing the paintings. Whether this was intentional at Altamira remains uncertain, but the possibility introduces another layer to an already complex mystery. The symbols scattered among the animals create further questions. Alongside recognizable creatures are handprints, geometric shapes, lines, and markings whose meanings have never been fully explained. Were these early attempts at communication, personal signatures, symbols connected to rituals, or something completely different? Without written records, modern researchers can only study patterns and possibilities. The silence of the cave leaves room for interpretation. As with many ancient sites, more speculative ideas have also emerged. Some writers have suggested that prehistoric cave art represents knowledge systems far more sophisticated than traditionally understood. Others have proposed that the paintings encode information about seasons, landscapes, or ancient beliefs now lost. A few fringe interpretations imagine connections between cave imagery and altered states of consciousness, suggesting that the artists may have been recording visions experienced during ritual experiences. These ideas remain debated and largely unproven, yet they reflect a genuine fascination with one undeniable fact. The people who created Altamira were capable of imagination, planning, and symbolic thought on a level once underestimated. The preservation of the cave adds another dimension to its story. After decades of visitors, scientists discovered that changes in temperature, humidity, and carbon dioxide levels were beginning to damage the paintings. Human presence itself threatened the very artwork people had traveled to admire. Eventually, access was restricted, and careful conservation measures were introduced. Today, most visitors experience Altamira through a detailed replica rather than the original chamber. A strange irony surrounds the cave. Human curiosity revealed the paintings. Human curiosity also became one of their greatest threats. Yet, the images remain powerful because they connect two distant moments of existence: the world of Ice Age artists and the modern world attempting to understand them. Standing before the painted ceiling of Altamira, even through careful reconstruction, one encounters something beyond simple decoration. These images represent a moment when human beings looked at the world around them and chose to transform observation into expression. The artists left no names, no written explanations, no direct message telling future generations why these images mattered. Only the animals remain, watching silently from the stone. Perhaps the deepest mystery of Altamira is not how these paintings were made, but what compelled their creators to make them at all. Were they preserving memories, honoring spirits, seeking connection with nature, or expressing thoughts that words could never contain? And if these ancient walls still hold meanings we have not fully recovered, what other forgotten messages might remain hidden in the darkness of caves that humanity has yet to discover? If the painted walls of Altamira remind us that humanity has always searched for ways to preserve memory, emotion, and belief, the next mystery reveals a different vision of remembrance. Here, art was not created in the hidden darkness of a prehistoric cave, but within a carefully designed passage beneath the desert, where every color, symbol, and image was intended to guide a queen beyond the limits of mortal existence. Far beneath the golden cliffs of Egypt's western desert, in a valley carved by wind and time, lies a place where silence seems almost deliberate. The Valley of the Queens stretches beneath towering limestone ridges not far from the ancient city of Thebes. Unlike the grand monuments rising above the desert floor, the entrances here are subtle, cut into the rock with little indication of the treasures and stories once hidden within. The landscape appears harsh and empty, yet beneath its surface rests one of the finest examples of ancient Egyptian artistic achievement. This is the tomb of Nefertari. Known as QV66, the burial place of Queen Nefertari is often considered one of the most beautifully decorated tombs ever created in ancient Egypt. Its walls do not simply display images, they surround the visitor with an entire symbolic universe, painted with extraordinary precision and vivid colors that have survived across more than 3,000 years. The tomb was built during the reign of Ramesses II, one of Egypt's most powerful and celebrated pharaohs, around the 13th century BC. Among his many wives, Nefertari held a unique position. She was not only a royal consort but also a significant political and religious figure. Inscriptions describe her as the one for whom the sun shines, reflecting the exceptional status she held within the royal court. Yet, much of her personal story remains hidden behind fragments of surviving evidence. Who was the woman behind the magnificent tomb? What role did she truly play in the empire of Ramesses II? And why did the king devote such extraordinary resources to preserving her journey into eternity? The answers are written partly in stone. Unlike many royal tombs whose decorations focus heavily on the achievements of the ruler, Nefertari's tomb presents a deeply personal vision. The artwork follows her transformation from a human queen into a divine being prepared to enter the afterlife. Every chamber carries symbolic meaning. The walls display scenes from ancient Egyptian funerary texts, including the Book of the Dead, and other sacred compositions designed to guide the deceased through dangerous and mysterious realms. Gods and goddesses appear beside the queen, offering protection and knowledge. Sacred symbols surround her, creating a visual map of the journey beyond death. The paintings are remarkable not only because of their meaning, but because of their quality. The artists used a sophisticated palette of blues, yellows, reds, whites, and greens. Fine details define jewelry, clothing, facial features, and divine figures. Unlike many ancient paintings that appear distant or formal, the images inside Nefertari's tomb possess a sense of elegance and movement. The queen appears graceful, calm, prepared. Yet, beneath the beauty lies a deeper mystery. How much of the tomb reflects Nefertari herself, and how much represents the expectations placed upon Egyptian queens during this period? Ancient Egyptian funerary art followed established traditions, but individual tombs often contained unique choices. The selection of specific gods, texts, and scenes could reveal personal beliefs, political messages, or religious priorities. Was the tomb designed primarily as a monument to a beloved queen, or was it also a statement about royal power, divine connection, and the stability of Egypt itself? The discovery of Q-Feve 66 added another layer of fascination. The tomb was found in the early 20th century by Italian archaeologist Ernesto Schiaparelli during excavations in the Valley of the Queens. When the chambers were entered, the researchers encountered breathtaking artwork, but they also found evidence of ancient disturbance. The tomb had been robbed in antiquity. Like many Egyptian burial sites, it did not survive untouched. Precious objects, jewelry, and offerings intended to accompany Nefertari into the next world had largely disappeared. The original burial equipment was mostly lost, leaving behind only fragments of what once existed. Yet the walls remained. In a way, the tomb's greatest treasure was the one thing thieves could not easily carry away: its images. However, preservation became a challenge of its own. Over thousands of years, changes in moisture, salt movement through the stone, and environmental conditions damaged portions of the paintings. Some sections showed signs of deterioration severe enough to threaten the survival of the artwork itself. In the late 20th century, an extensive restoration project began. Specialists carefully studied pigments, repaired damaged surfaces, and used scientific techniques to stabilize the fragile decorations. The work revealed just how delicate the relationship was between discovery and preservation. A tomb created to protect a queen for eternity required protection itself. This irony echoes throughout many ancient sites. Humanity searches for the past, but the act of searching can place that past at risk. The symbolism within Nefertari's tomb has also inspired questions beyond traditional archaeology. Some researchers have explored the possibility that the arrangement of scenes reflects deeper astronomical or cosmological ideas. Others have examined whether the repeated appearance of certain gods and symbols reveals specific theological beliefs connected to the Ramesside period. These interpretations remain within the boundaries of scholarly discussion. But beyond academic research, more speculative ideas have also appeared. Some writers have suggested that the tomb contains hidden mathematical patterns, encoded knowledge, or symbolic systems whose meanings have not yet been fully recognized. Others imagine that ancient Egyptian royal tombs preserved forms of spiritual knowledge that modern societies no longer understand. Such ideas are difficult to prove. Ancient symbols can carry many layers of meaning, and separating historical evidence from modern interpretation is not always simple. Still, the fascination remains understandable. The tomb was designed around a fundamental human question: what happens after life ends? For the ancient Egyptians, death was not viewed as a final disappearance. It was a transition requiring preparation, knowledge, and divine assistance. Nefertari's tomb reflects this belief in every detail. The journey through darkness toward rebirth appears again and again through painted scenes and sacred texts. The architecture itself reinforces this idea. The deeper one moves into the tomb, the farther one travels from the ordinary world. Corridors narrow. Chambers become more intimate. The outside landscape disappears completely. It creates the feeling of crossing a boundary. Not simply entering a burial place, but entering another realm. Perhaps this was precisely the intention. The ancient builders understood that space could influence emotion. Darkness, color, scale, and symbolism combined to create an experience that went beyond viewing art. The visitor was surrounded by a carefully constructed environment where every element carried meaning. Today, access to the tomb of Nefertari is limited to protect its fragile condition. Only small numbers of visitors are allowed inside under controlled circumstances. The restriction preserves what remains, ensuring that future generations can continue studying one of Egypt's greatest artistic achievements. Yet, even with modern technology, much remains unknown. The exact details of Nefertari's life remain incomplete. Her relationship with Ramesses II is known largely through royal inscriptions rather than personal writings. The meaning behind certain artistic choices continues to be debated. The original contents of the tomb are mostly lost forever. What remains is a remarkable fragment of a vanished world, a queen's image preserved in color, a journey painted onto stone, a message created for eternity. Perhaps the enduring mystery of Nefertari's tomb is not simply what lies within its walls, but what the builders hoped future generations would understand. Were these paintings only instructions for the afterlife, or were they also a final expression of identity, love, power, and memory? And as the colors continue to survive in the quiet darkness of the valley, what other stories about this forgotten queen remain hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? If the tomb of Nefertari reveals how ancient Egypt transformed burial into a carefully designed journey beyond life, the next mystery carries us across the world to a civilization where rulers were remembered through towering temples, hidden chambers, and elaborate rituals of transformation. Here, beneath the ruins of an ancient Maya city, a sealed chamber waited silently for more than 1,000 years, preserving the remains of a powerful woman whose identity remained unknown for generations. Deep within the tropical forests of southern Mexico, where towering trees surround ancient stone structures and morning mist drifts between weathered temples, lies the archaeological site of Palenque. The city appears almost swallowed by nature. Roots extend through ancient walls. Green vegetation covers stairways once climbed by kings and priests. The sounds of the jungle move through plazas that were once filled with ceremonies, political gatherings, and sacred performances. Yet, beneath one of Palenque's most important monuments, a mystery remained hidden. Inside the Temple 13 complex, archaeologists discovered a sealed burial chamber containing the remains of a woman covered in a striking red mineral pigment. She became known as the Red Queen. The discovery transformed understanding of Maya royal burial practices and raised a question that still echoes today. Who was this woman, and why was she buried with such extraordinary care? The tomb was uncovered in 1994 by Mexican archaeologist Arnoldo González Cruz and his team during excavations near the famous Temple of the Inscriptions, the monument that contains the burial of Pakal the Great. Unlike Pakal's grand funerary chamber, the Red Queen's tomb was smaller and more mysterious. It contained no long inscription clearly identifying the individual resting within. Instead, archaeologists found clues. Inside the chamber was a stone sarcophagus containing a female skeleton covered with a thick layer of bright red cinnabar, a mineral form of mercury sulfide. Around the remains were jade ornaments, shell pieces, pearls, bone objects, and fragments of ceremonial items. The red pigment immediately captured attention. Across many ancient cultures, red carried powerful symbolic meanings. It could represent blood, life, renewal, power, or transformation. In Maya traditions, color was not merely decoration. It was connected to concepts of the cosmos, sacred forces, and the relationship between life and death. Was the Red Queen covered in cinnabar as part of a ritual transformation? Was the pigment meant to symbolize rebirth? Or did it represent something specific about her identity and status? The answers remain uncertain. The woman's burial clearly indicates importance. The amount of effort invested in her tomb suggests she belonged to the highest levels of Maya society. The jade ornaments and elaborate offerings were not objects available to ordinary individuals. They reflected wealth, authority, and connection to the spiritual world. Yet her name was lost. This absence makes the discovery even more intriguing. Unlike many Maya rulers whose identities survive through inscriptions carved into stone monuments, the Red Queen left behind no direct written record. Archaeologists were forced to reconstruct her story through evidence rather than through her own historical voice. Early theories naturally connected her with one of Palenque's most famous rulers. Because the tomb was located near the Temple of the Inscriptions, some researchers suggested that the Red Queen might have been Lady Tzakbu Ajah, the wife of Pakal the Great. Historical records confirm that Lady Tzakbu Ajah was a powerful queen who played an important role in Palenque's royal dynasty. The possibility was compelling. A great king's wife resting near his famous tomb. A royal woman preserved close to the center of political power. However, later scientific studies complicated this interpretation. DNA analysis has been limited by preservation challenges, and researchers have not reached a universally accepted identification. Some evidence suggests the Red Queen may not have been Pakal's wife at all. Other possibilities include another royal woman connected to the dynasty. The mystery remains open. The physical remains themselves have revealed additional information. Studies suggest the woman was older than many Maya individuals at the time of death, possibly between her late 40s and 60s. Researchers have also examined evidence of health conditions and diet, attempting to reconstruct aspects of her life. But a skeleton can reveal only part of a person's story. It cannot explain her thoughts, her influence, her relationships, or the role she played within one of the most sophisticated civilizations of ancient America. The burial chamber itself offers further questions. Why was she placed within this specific location? Why was cinnabar used so extensively? And why were certain objects selected to accompany her? In Maya belief systems, death was not a complete separation from existence. The deceased continued within a larger cosmic cycle, connected to ancestors, gods, and the forces shaping the universe. Royal burials were not simply acts of remembrance. They were statements about continuity, authority, and the connection between human rulers and the divine. The Red Queen's tomb reflects this worldview. She was not merely buried. She was transformed into part of a larger story. Yet, beyond established archaeology, the tomb has inspired broader speculation. Some writers have suggested that the Red Queen's burial contains hidden messages about Maya astronomy, royal succession, or forgotten rituals. Others have wondered whether additional undiscovered chambers near Palenque could reveal more about the dynasty that ruled the city. These possibilities are not impossible, but they remain unconfirmed. What is certain is that Palenque still holds many unanswered questions. The city itself continues revealing surprises. Beneath the jungle, archaeologists have uncovered new structures, inscriptions, and evidence of daily life that continue expanding understanding of the Maya world. Every discovery changes the picture slightly, showing a civilization far more complex than older assumptions suggested. The Red Queen also challenges a common idea about ancient history. For much of the past, archaeological attention focused heavily on male rulers, warriors, and conquerors. Discoveries like this reveal another side of ancient civilizations, the power and importance of women within royal systems. Whoever the Red Queen was, she occupied a position significant enough to receive a burial worthy of a ruler. Her presence reminds us that history is not only preserved through kings and battles. Sometimes it survives through a single hidden chamber, a quiet room beneath a forgotten temple, a woman covered in red pigment, waiting centuries before anyone asked her name. The conservation of the tomb has also become part of its modern story. Cinnabar, while visually striking, contains mercury and requires careful handling. Archaeologists must balance study with preservation, protecting both the remains and the fragile objects that survived alongside them. Like many ancient mysteries, the Red Queen's tomb exists between discovery and uncertainty. Science can reveal age, materials, health, and possible relationships. Archaeology can reconstruct patterns of culture and belief. But some questions remain beyond direct evidence. The identity of the Red Queen is one of those questions. Perhaps future technologies will provide new answers. Perhaps additional discoveries at Palenque will reveal inscriptions or evidence that finally connect her to a known figure. Or perhaps her true name has disappeared forever, leaving only the traces she chose, or her society chose, to preserve. Standing before the silent chamber beneath the Maya ruins, one thought remains. The Red Queen was buried with extraordinary care, surrounded by symbols of status, transformation, and memory. Someone believed her story deserved to continue long after her life ended. But who was she truly? And how many other voices, equally important yet forgotten by time, may still be waiting beneath the ancient landscapes of the world, hidden behind stone walls and silent passages hoping to be discovered? If the tomb of the Red Queen reveals how a forgotten individual can emerge from silence through a single preserved chamber, the next mystery offers a different perspective on the ancient world. Here, the story does not belong to a pharaoh or a legendary ruler. Instead, it belongs to two ordinary people whose final resting place unexpectedly survived almost untouched, preserving a rare glimpse into the private lives of those who built the monuments of Egypt. Beyond the grand temples and royal burial grounds of the ancient world lies another kind of discovery, a quieter one. Hidden within the cliffs of western Thebes, where the desert meets the fertile lands beside the Nile, lies a valley filled with the remains of craftsmen, officials, and workers who supported the construction of Egypt's greatest monuments. The landscape appears harsh and empty beneath the sun, yet beneath the rocky slopes are countless stories of ambition, devotion, and daily life. Among these hidden chambers was one remarkable tomb. It belonged to Ka and Merit. Known as TT8, the tomb of Ka and Merit was discovered in 1906 by Italian archaeologist Ernesto Schiaparelli during excavations at Deir el-Medina, the ancient settlement of the artisans who created many royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings. Unlike many Egyptian burials discovered over the centuries, this tomb contained something extraordinarily rare. It was almost completely intact. There were no ancient robbers who had emptied its chambers. No centuries of disturbance that scattered its contents. Instead, the doorway opened onto a preserved collection of objects that revealed not only how ancient Egyptians prepared for eternity, but also how they lived, worked, and cared for one another. The discovery changed the way historians viewed the people behind Egypt's monumental achievements. Ka was not a king. He was not a military conqueror. He was a highly respected architect and supervisor responsible for overseeing construction projects during the reigns of several pharaohs, including Amenhotep II, Thutmose IV, and Amenhotep III during Egypt's 18th dynasty, around the 14th century BC. His role was significant. The tombs of powerful rulers required extraordinary planning, engineering, and organization. Behind every royal monument stood skilled workers, administrators, and craftsmen who transformed royal ambitions into physical reality. Ka was one of those individuals. Yet, perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the tomb is that it does not simply preserve a professional legacy. It preserves a marriage. Alongside Ka's burial was that of Merit, his wife. Their relationship emerges not through written biographies, but through the objects left behind. Jewelry, clothing, cosmetics, furniture, food containers, personal belongings. Together, these items create a rare portrait of an Egyptian couple whose lives were connected not only by social duty, but also by affection and shared identity. The tomb feels almost intimate. It does not resemble the distant world of kings and gods alone. It feels human. Inside were beautifully crafted funerary objects, including wooden furniture, decorated boxes, finely made tools, and containers that once held oils, cosmetics, and food. These possessions suggest that Ka and Merit expected their existence to continue in another form and prepared carefully for that future. Ancient Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife were not based on simple disappearance. Death represented a transition, a continuation. The deceased required protection, nourishment, and symbolic objects that could support their journey beyond the physical world. Every item placed inside the tomb reflected this belief. Yet, one detail makes the discovery especially unusual. The tomb was not originally created as an extraordinary historical archive. It was a personal burial place. No one who prepared it could have known that thousands of years later, these everyday objects would become some of the most valuable evidence for understanding ancient Egyptian life. This raises an intriguing question. How many other private stories disappeared because their tombs were disturbed or their objects were lost? Ka and Merit's preservation may represent not the ordinary experience of ancient Egyptians, but an extraordinary moment of survival. The contents of the tomb also challenge the common image of ancient Egypt as a civilization focused only on monumental achievements. The objects reveal ordinary concerns: appearance, comfort, organization, personal possessions, relationships. Through these items, the ancient world becomes less distant. A wooden chair is no longer simply an artifact. It becomes something someone once sat upon. A container of cosmetics becomes a reminder of personal routines. A piece of clothing becomes evidence of a person who once moved through daily life beneath the Egyptian sun. This connection between past and present is one reason the tomb remains so fascinating. Yet even within this remarkably preserved discovery, mysteries remain. The exact details of Ka's career are incomplete. Inscriptions tell us his titles and responsibilities, but they reveal little about his personality, thoughts, or private experiences. We know what he built, but not how he felt while doing it. The same is true of Merit. Her presence within the tomb is powerful, but her own voice is almost completely absent from historical records. Who was she beyond being Ka's wife? What role did she play within her household and community? What memories did those who knew her carry after her death? The objects offer clues, but they cannot tell the entire story. The tomb also raises questions about ancient Egyptian social structure. Ka possessed enough wealth and status to receive an elaborate burial, yet he was not part of the royal family. His tomb demonstrates that prestige and preparation for the afterlife extended beyond pharaohs and nobles. Skilled professionals who served the state could achieve remarkable recognition. Was Ka exceptional, Or does his tomb reveal a broader social reality that has been overlooked because history often focuses on rulers? Beyond mainstream archaeology, the discovery has inspired more imaginative interpretations. Some writers have suggested that the remarkable preservation of Ka and Merit's possessions reflects hidden knowledge about ancient Egyptian funerary practices that remains only partially understood. Others wonder whether private tombs like theirs may still contain undiscovered information about personal beliefs, family traditions, and daily life. These ideas remain speculative. But the possibility that more ordinary voices are waiting beneath the desert is not impossible. Egypt's landscape continues revealing surprises. Every excavation has the potential to uncover not only monuments but forgotten human stories. The preservation of TT-8 also presents another mystery. Why did this tomb survive when so many others were robbed? Was it simply hidden by chance? Was its location overlooked? Or did circumstances surrounding the burial somehow protect it through centuries of political change, environmental shifts, and human activity? There is no single answer. Like many archaeological discoveries, the survival itself becomes part of the mystery. Today, the objects from Ka and Merit's tomb are preserved and studied, offering researchers an extraordinary opportunity to examine the material world of ancient Egypt. Their belongings continue providing information about craftsmanship, trade, technology, and social customs during a period often remembered only through temples and royal monuments. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the tomb is its humanity. The Great Pyramids and temples reveal what civilizations wanted the world to remember about power. Ka and Merit reveal something quieter. They show how people prepared for the unknown, how they valued beauty, how they preserved memories, how they hoped their connection would continue beyond death. Standing before the surviving objects of TT-8, one is reminded that history is not only written by kings. Sometimes it survives through the belongings of those who lived ordinary lives within extraordinary times. And yet, even with such an intimate glimpse into the past, questions remain. How many other personal stories have vanished completely? How many hidden tombs still wait beneath the sands, preserving the names, dreams, and forgotten moments of people who believed they too deserved to be remembered? If the tomb of Ka and Merit reveals how the lives of ordinary yet remarkable individuals can survive through the objects they leave behind, the next mystery returns us to the vast landscape of Saqqara, where generations of ancient Egyptians transformed the desert into a city of the dead. Here, beneath layers of sand and stone, another tomb preserved a story of power, artistry, and a world that continues to reveal fragments of its forgotten past. The desert stretches endlessly beneath the Egyptian sun. Beyond the modern outskirts of Cairo, the golden plateau of Saqqara rises above the fertile lands of the Nile Valley. The landscape appears almost silent, broken only by ancient walls, scattered ruins, and the unmistakable shape of the step pyramid of Djoser, the monument that changed the history of architecture. For thousands of years, Saqqara served as one of Egypt's most important burial grounds. Kings, officials, priests, and administrators were laid to rest here, their tombs reflecting not only beliefs about death, but also the complex structure of Egyptian society. Beneath this desert surface lies a vast archive of human ambition, preserved through painted walls, carved inscriptions, and hidden chambers. Among these discoveries is the tomb of Maya. At first glance, Maya's burial place may seem like another impressive monument among many at Saqqara. Yet, its significance extends far beyond its architecture. It offers a rare glimpse into the final years of one of Egypt's most fascinating periods, a time of religious transformation, political uncertainty, and dramatic change. Maya lived during the 18th dynasty, around the 14th century BC, during the reigns of Tutankhamun and his successors. He held one of the most powerful administrative positions in ancient Egypt, serving as the overseer of the treasury and later as an influential official responsible for managing the wealth and resources of the kingdom. He was not a pharaoh, but he stood close to the center of royal power. His career unfolded during a period of extraordinary historical tension. Earlier rulers had promoted major religious changes, especially during the reign of Akhenaten, who introduced a revolutionary focus on the worship of the Aten, the sun disk. After Akhenaten's death, Egypt gradually returned to traditional religious practices, restoring the authority of the old gods and rebuilding institutions that had been disrupted. Maya lived during this transition. His tomb therefore preserves more than personal memory. It reflects a civilization attempting to restore balance after a period of upheaval. The tomb was discovered in the late 20th century by a joint Dutch-British archaeological mission led by Geoffrey Martin and his team. Located near the famous Saqqara necropolis of the New Kingdom, the complex revealed beautifully decorated chambers containing scenes of daily life, religious ceremonies, and offerings. Unlike royal tombs hidden deep beneath mountains, Maya's tomb was built as a visible statement of status and achievement. Its walls were designed to communicate. They show Maya receiving offerings, participating in rituals, and carrying out his official responsibilities. The images reveal a man connected to both earthly administration and the spiritual world. Yet, even with these detailed scenes, many questions remain. How much of the tomb reflects Maya's actual life? How much follows the traditional artistic language expected of elite Egyptians? Ancient Egyptian tomb decoration often blended personal identity with idealized representation. Officials were shown at their most successful, surrounded by symbols of prosperity and eternal order. The challenge for modern researchers is separating historical reality from ceremonial expression. The tomb provides clues, but it also preserves mysteries. One of the most remarkable aspects of Maya's story is his connection to Tutankhamun. During the young king's short reign, Egypt was recovering from the religious changes of the previous generation. Officials like Maya played a crucial role in rebuilding temples, restoring institutions, and returning stability to the kingdom. Could Maya have been one of the architects behind this restoration? His position suggests significant influence, yet historical records reveal only fragments of his actions. The people who shaped Egypt's recovery after Akhenaten's revolution remain partly hidden behind official inscriptions and incomplete evidence. Maya's tomb also raises questions about ancient Egyptian administration itself. The position of overseer of the treasury required enormous responsibility. Maya would have managed resources flowing through the empire: precious metals, agricultural goods, taxes, and materials needed for temples and royal projects. Such a role required not only trust, but extraordinary organizational skill. How did one individual manage such a vast system? What decisions did he make that affected thousands of people? And how much of his influence disappeared when later generations focused mainly on kings and monuments? The artwork within the tomb offers another fascinating layer. Scenes of offerings and ceremonies reveal the importance of maintaining relationships between the living and the dead. Ancient Egyptians believed that memory and ritual helped sustain existence beyond physical death. A person's name, image, and accomplishments needed to continue being recognized. In this sense, the tomb itself was a form of preservation. Maya was not simply buried. He was placed into an environment designed to keep his identity active for eternity. Yet, the survival of the tomb was not guaranteed. Like many ancient sites, it experienced damage over centuries. Weather, changing landscapes, and human activity affected portions of the structure. Some areas were lost or damaged before archaeologists could study them. This creates another quiet mystery. How much information vanished before modern researchers arrived? How many inscriptions, paintings, and personal details disappeared without anyone ever recording them? The remains of Saqqara constantly remind us that archaeology is often an attempt to reconstruct a story from incomplete pages. Beyond established research, Maya's tomb has also inspired broader speculation. Some writers have wondered whether hidden chambers or undiscovered sections of the complex might still exist nearby, containing additional records about the political changes following Akhenaten's reign. Others suggest that the officials who managed Egypt's restoration may have left behind a deeper historical narrative that remains only partially uncovered. These possibilities reflect a simple truth about Saqqara. The site is enormous. New discoveries continue emerging, and every excavation season has the potential to reveal unexpected evidence. However, the most compelling mystery may not be about hidden rooms or lost treasures. It may be about the people themselves. Maya lived during a moment when Egypt was changing. Religious traditions were being restored. Political structures were being rebuilt. A young pharaoh sat upon the throne while experienced officials worked behind the scenes to stabilize the kingdom. History often remembers rulers. But civilizations are also shaped by those who organize, negotiate, and rebuild. Maya was one of those individuals. His tomb preserves the image of a powerful administrator who wanted his role remembered, yet the full story of his influence remains incomplete. The paintings show his official duties. The inscriptions reveal his titles. The objects provide glimpses of his world, but they cannot fully reveal his thoughts, his fears, his ambitions, or the personal moments hidden behind the public identity of an ancient official. Standing among the ruins of Saqqara, surrounded by monuments built for eternity, it becomes clear that every tomb is both an answer and a question. It tells us what someone wanted preserved, but it also reminds us how much has disappeared. Perhaps the greatest mystery of Maya's tomb is not what has been discovered, but what remains unknown. How many voices from Egypt's changing centuries still lie beneath the sand? How many untold stories of the people who shaped history remain hidden within the silent chambers of Saqqara, waiting for the desert to reveal them? If the tomb of Maya at Saqqara reveals how powerful officials shaped the course of Egypt from behind the throne, the next mystery moves us closer to the heart of ancient Thebes, where another official left behind a burial place unlike almost any other. Here, the mystery is not hidden beneath layers of forgotten history, but painted directly above us, surrounding visitors with a vision of nature, renewal, and eternity. Among the cliffs of western Thebes, where the desert mountains rise sharply above the Nile Valley, lies a quiet entrance carved into the stone. The landscape appears almost timeless. The same golden hills that watched over ancient ceremonies thousands of years ago still dominate the horizon today. Hidden among these rocky slopes is a vast cemetery known as Sheikh Abd el-Qurna, a place where nobles, administrators, and important figures of ancient Egypt created their final resting places. Unlike the enormous monuments built for pharaohs, these tombs were smaller, more personal, and often designed to reveal something about the individuals who occupied them. Among them is one remarkable chamber, the tomb of Sennefer. Known as TT-96, this burial place belongs to Sennefer, a high-ranking official who lived during the reign of Amenhotep II in the 18th dynasty, around the 15th century BC. He served as the mayor of Thebes and held important religious and administrative titles, including responsibility connected with the temple estates of the god Amun. Yet, what makes his tomb extraordinary is not only the person buried within, it is the ceiling. As visitors enter the deepest chambers, they are surrounded by a remarkable painted surface that has given the tomb its famous name, the Tomb of the Vine. Above them stretches an illusion of a living garden. Hundreds of painted vines spread across the ceiling, creating the impression of standing beneath a flourishing canopy. Grapes hang from twisting branches. Patterns flow across the stone. The artwork transforms a dark underground chamber into a symbolic landscape filled with life. It is an unusual vision for a place associated with death. But for ancient Egyptians, death was not the end of existence. It was a transition, a movement from one state of being into another. The imagery inside Sennefer's tomb reflects this belief. The vineyard was not simply decoration. It represented abundance, renewal, and the hope that the deceased would continue to experience prosperity in the afterlife. The ceiling creates a fascinating question. Was Sennefer attempting to recreate a paradise beneath the earth? Or was the painted garden a symbolic bridge between the physical world and the divine realm? Ancient Egyptian tomb art often transformed burial chambers into carefully designed environments. Walls and ceilings were not empty surfaces. They carried messages, prayers, and images intended to support the deceased's journey. In Sennefer's tomb, the artwork appears almost immersive. The visitor does not simply look at a painting. The visitor enters it. This was likely intentional. The Egyptians understood the power of visual experience. Images were not considered passive representations. They could function as extensions of reality itself. A painted offering could symbolically provide nourishment. A painted garden could represent eternal life. The tomb's decoration, therefore, served a deeper purpose. It was not only beautiful, it was functional within the beliefs of the time. Sennefer himself occupied an important position in Theban society. As mayor of Thebes, he would have overseen one of Egypt's most significant cities. Thebes was not merely a political center. It was a religious heartland dominated by the Temple of Amun, one of the most powerful institutions in ancient Egypt. His connection to this religious world appears throughout his burial place. Inscriptions and scenes emphasize his relationship with gods, rituals, and the continuation of order after death. They reveal an individual who existed within a society where administrative authority and religious responsibility were deeply connected. Yet, much about Sennefer's personal life remains uncertain. The tomb tells us his titles. It reveals his status. It preserves images connected to his beliefs, but it does not tell us his private thoughts. What kind of person was he away from official duties? Was he admired by those who worked under him? Did he personally choose the vineyard imagery? Or was it selected according to traditions expected for someone of his rank? These questions remain open. The tomb also raises broader questions about ancient Egyptian ideas of nature. Why did a civilization surrounded by desert place such importance on gardens, plants, and agricultural imagery? The answer may be connected to the Nile itself. The river created a contrast between two worlds: the fertile lands where life flourished and the surrounding desert associated with burial and mystery. Plants, water, and greenery represented renewal because they reflected the annual cycles that sustained Egyptian civilization. A vineyard beneath the earth was therefore more than a pleasant image. It was a statement about rebirth. However, the tomb's beauty has also attracted more speculative interpretations. Some writers have suggested that the ceiling patterns contain hidden astronomical meanings or symbolic systems connected to ancient knowledge of the universe. Others have wondered whether Egyptian gardens and plant imagery carry deeper meanings related to sacred landscapes, now only partially understood. Such ideas remain debated. Many interpretations of ancient symbols depend on limited evidence, and separating historical meaning from modern imagination can be challenging. But the fascination is understandable. The tomb appears to create a complete environment, where architecture, art, and belief combine into a single experience. The preservation of Sennefer's tomb is another part of its story. Over thousands of years, environmental changes, humidity, and human activity affected many Egyptian burial sites. Paintings that survived for millennia remain extremely fragile. Even the presence of modern visitors can influence conditions inside ancient chambers. This creates a difficult balance. The more people wish to experience these places, the greater the need to protect them. Like many ancient monuments, the tomb of Sennefer exists between discovery and preservation. It is a doorway into the past, but also a reminder that the past can disappear. The tomb also offers a rare glimpse into the lives of Egypt's elite beyond the royal family. While pharaohs dominate popular imagination, officials like Sennefer played essential roles in maintaining the institutions that allowed Egyptian civilization to function. Their stories reveal another dimension of history. Not only the rulers who commanded monuments, but the administrators who organized society, managed resources, and shaped religious life. Sennefer's final resting place reflects this position. It is neither a simple private burial nor a royal monument. It exists somewhere between, a statement of personal achievement, a reflection of cultural beliefs, a carefully created space where one man hoped his identity would continue beyond death. Today, the painted ceiling remains the most unforgettable feature of the tomb. The vines still spread across the stone, preserving a vision created more than 3,000 years ago. The colors have faded in places, but the idea remains powerful. A garden beneath the desert. A living landscape inside a place of silence. A reminder that ancient Egyptians imagined eternity not as emptiness, but as continuation. And yet, the tomb of Sennefer still holds unanswered questions. Did the paintings reveal the exact beliefs of one individual, or were they part of a larger symbolic language shared across Egyptian society? Were there meanings hidden within the vines and patterns that modern observers have not fully recovered? And beneath the painted surface of Egypt's ancient tombs, how many other stories remain waiting to be understood?